Alright, might end up being part one in a series of videos. Matt and John, Math Fails and Thou Art That, have this HolonsNetwork. Holon, I think it is, well, whatever. Post a link. Doing these interviews, they're doing a good job. They're sort of interesting, most of them. I mean, they've interviewed Nicotine too, Jasper Abbey, somebody else, Professor Anton Guy. Sort of interesting, a little weird, but anyway, they're good interviews. So if you got a half hour, well, I mean, you know, there's 3 parts each, you know, it's over a half hour. But anyway, for each one, they're not bad. Not any really new information. I mean, I was a little bit surprised that Nicotine 2 is, you know, is not really a determinist, and he doesn't think there's any definitive value in the universe for us to discover. So I'll play, reluctantly, a clip from his interview where I am mentioned. It happens now and then. Yeah, so we'll just play the clip, and then I'll be back after the clip.
Nicotine, do you think that there is, in any way, a good, a capital G good, that's greater than any particular cultural good, that sort of has authority over what any particular worldview may think is good? Or do you think that that's just an illusion?
I don't think so. I don't think that exists. I think good is a creation of our own minds, and our own minds are, of course, running a lot of cultural software that are influencing it. I mean, I think there are some basic ideas that are so a part of who we are, biologically speaking, that pretty much all of us, with the exception of, say, sociopaths, have these intuitions and feelings. Yeah. But I don't think there's like a good floating out in the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think someone else watching this might interpret that like you take the stance of Amendum. He thinks there's an objective, you know, it's back to suffering. So not suffering would be objectively good for him.
Right.
And then you try to say, well, that is a subjective spin. Not that it's wrong, or an intersubjective spin. But he says, no, you're fucked hearted. It has to be. It is an objective kind of thing.
Yeah, you're right. Amendum, he said suffering is fucking objective. You know, like he always says that. I've never been able to figure out what he means by that, because to me it seems like suffering, pleasure, color, all of that is fairly subjective.
Okay, now that was kind of annoying. You know, it's kind of irritating. Yeah, how do you know what? So we have to have this argument again. I guess I have to make the argument again because I'm somehow being misunderstood. You can create all kinds of thought experiments that make it really clear that you're really going to have to try really hard to come up with some reason not to go with the intuitive truth, the one that's obvious. You know, you're going to have to come up with some kind of bullshit like we're just part of the Matrix and there's some kind of, you know, giant bubblegum machine that's really behind the whole universe, or, you know, whatever the phantasmagorical bullshit fantasy story would be, to undo the reality that suffering is a quantum of value in the universe that we can objectively state pretty factually. That there's really no doubt. We might not be able to know the exact value of suffering, but we can know what's on what side of a scale. All right? So, I mean, I could just describe a universe where there's a zillion monkeys with nails going in and out of their head all day, and they're conscious. All right? And that's one universe. And the other universe just has goldfish swimming in bowls and, you know, eating ice cream. There's just no way you could make an argument that somehow we can't rationally deduce, you know, in an intelligent manner, that one universe would be preferable over the other universe. If we had to make a choice, we could make the choice. And there's no conceivable intelligence. We can't even imagine one stupid enough to choose the nail in the head monkey universe. There's just, or gorilla, whatever. There's no way an intelligence could do that. Only a subjectively, psychotically broken thing that thought suffering was great sport could fucking choose that universe. And nobody would say that somebody who thought suffering was great sport how could you define that as rational? Because the concept, it's been built into us. We've been designed to avoid, to be repulsed by things, and to be attracted to things. And this natural tendency, built by evolution, doesn't have a corruption in it. There's not a reason to suspect that nature got it wrong, and we were supposed to like pain and dislike pleasure. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. I mean, yes, we don't have every fact that we would like to have about how the universe functions or how we exist, but everything we do have, you know, all the circumstantial evidence just makes it clear that suffering matters. It can't, you know, that it is an important constituent in some sort of value equation truth, not an illusion, not bullshit, but that there is a truth. And then here's the second argument: is how can you possibly describe a universe where there's no truth regarding value? Because if what you're saying is true, if you believe that, if you actually are saying that it's the truth, that there is no truth regarding value in the universe, then nothing matters. Conversing with each other does not matter. You could just argue that every human being should just do what they want to do, because there's no mass consequence, there's no social good, there's no benefit of you know, even the simple Mr. Spock equation from the movie, you know, the greatest good for the greatest number kind of equation. All of that goes right out the window if there's no such thing as an absolute truth regarding value. If we're just arguing about what our favorite color is, then it's just stupid to say any argument is meaningful, because it's not then. So I don't even know how you can make any sense of a you know, and well, even the way he's phrased it, he puts suffering in the same category as a color preference. I mean, he even made that Freudian type slip, as if it's the same thing. One is infinitely subjective in its nature, where there has no objective component whatsoever. The other, the determination of that suffering is worse than pleasure, or that it's good to get rid of suffering, and that's a statement of fact. Every bit of rational, intellectual understanding points at that truth. No intelligence points to the truth of a color preference. So that's just bullshit arguments. And to say this is somehow a complex argument and you don't understand what I'm saying, I mean, what a pile of crap that is. You just don't have a counter argument yet that you've composed to argue that somehow consciousness and the capacity to now harm sentient creatures does change the nature of the universe. That a universe that doesn't contain that component, the component of a conscious organism capable of feeling, is the same as a universe that doesn't, because they are different universes. This is meaningful. The consciousness thing is what makes it meaningful, and not as Jasper Avi would contrive it. He thinks it only matters if it matters to an observer. That the actual gorilla having a nail driven in and out of its head is irrelevant. What it's feeling is irrelevant. What only matters is if some observer is looking at it and says, oh, that's disturbing or that's not disturbing. That determines whether it has meaning or significance, is the observer. And what a pile of shit that is. I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The observer is irrelevant. It is the participant that matters. So anyway, I guess this is something that's going to have to be argued a lot. Just like the free will determinism thing, because that came up again. You know, in both conversations, they both Jasper Avi and Nicotine too, somehow believe, and John and Matt, that there's some free will component in how human beings function. There's some element in their brain, even though they probably concede that they don't consciously think, that subconsciously the thinking's done. Like everything I've just spoken in this whole video, I did not consciously deliberate over it and figure out what the right word was and all that stuff. No, my subconscious did all the filtering for me. And that there's some component in that subconscious, in that wiring of our brains, that somehow makes a decision about what, you know, what word we're going to use. So instead of using, you know, frog, I use amphibian. You know, and there's some sort of thing that's choosing and making a decision, something other than my personal experience and the programming that experience has done to me.